Jon Baker is a professional speaker and author, and he helps firms grow from 5 to 50 employees. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what Jon has to say to us this evening. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Jon. So Jon, do go ahead.
Thank you, Janet, and thank you everybody for your patience in waiting for me to start. What we're going to talk about tonight is the subject, as it says on my version of the slide, how to become the go-to expert. But I think there's probably three things that I could usefully talk about in that. One is, why on earth would you want to in the first place? The second is about kind of some of the thinking behind some strategies that you could adopt to do that. And then moving on to some very practical, tactical tips so that you can kind of get off of the webinar and go, yep, I can see what I want to do, I can see what I need to do, and I've got some really simple practical tips to get on with. I will stop for questions a couple of places as we go, seeing as there's some words missing on the slides. So please keep typing the questions in, as Janet said, and we'll pick those up while we're going. Now, the next slide, as you can see, has got absolutely nothing, apparently, to do with business or becoming the go-to expert in anything. And really, it's a personal example. I've dived in many places all around the world, from up in the Arctic underneath the ice by cutting holes, all the way down to New Zealand. So most of the times I speak, I end up talking about getting attacked by sharks or whatever else. But tonight, I just wanted to kind of reflect on one thing that happened to me about 5 years ago. My son wanted to learn to dive. He had seen me been doing it for many years. And I was in a bit of a quandary, because at this point I knew that the only person that I would trust to teach Paul to dive was somebody that was damn good at what they did. I needed the experts. I needed somebody I could trust. So at that point I'm going, well, how on earth do I work out who I can trust? And it's no good in today's world going, let me look on the internet. There's 5,332 pages, all came back within about 0.17 seconds from Google. And all of these pages said, we have expert diving instructors. Still wasn't enough to allow me to go, yep, I'm going to give one of those my son to teach him to get under the water. And I think this is a quandary that more and more people are facing today. So in the end, what it came down to was about finding people that were demonstrating to me in some way that they were safe, that they were expert, not claiming. We're all bombarded by advertising messages all day long. There's a statistic around that says we are bombarded on a typical day by something like 5,000 advertising messages. We're very good at ignoring most of them. That's one of the development things that we've managed to do. And the ones that we ignore tend to be ones that are claiming, where people are claiming to be the best, etc., etc. So the point coming back to, how on earth do we choose when most of the marketing, if you like, to put it like that, gets screened out? What I also want to do tonight is talk about why this is relevant to your career, as well as those people of you that might be self-employed or freelance consultants. Certainly when Heather and I wrote the book, it was based around the development of people's small business consultancy careers, but we were very much aware that a number of people have used the tips and techniques, if you like, that are in there to develop their careers as well. So what I'd like to do, Janet, if you could put up the first poll.
I've just opened it, Jon, so we'll give people a little while to actually answer to this. And do you want to read through it quickly?
Yeah, essentially it's around what do you do at the moment? It's going to help me to get an understanding for the type of people that are on the line and the needs that you have. I want to tailor this as much as possible to you guys. Are you self-employed? Do you manage people? Do you have responsibility to find clients for your firm? Perhaps you're just looking for career development. or perhaps you're some form of technical specialist. So I'll leave you to decide what you think is the most appropriate answer for you there. And while people are completing that, I'm going to just chat for a minute without changing the slides at all, and give you a couple of mini case studies, if you like. So Sarah's a financial advisor in a firm of financial advisors, obviously, and she decided that, or she started to realise that she had a particular skill in working with lawyers. As her client base grew, she started to find herself increasingly attracting clients who were accountants as well, because they had similar problems. And in the end, what she started to do was produce particularly tailored marketing materials, because, again, coming back to marketing today, one of the things is that we're all very good at ignoring messages, as I said, but if the message is tailored particularly for us, we're much better at hearing it. Curtis, another example, was in a company, and he was, if you like, the expert on networking within that company. When the firm had a client who wanted to run networking training, it was Curtis who always booked to help. As time went on, he developed his skill in social networking as well as face-to-face, and the company actually started to market his services for social media training as well as networking training. So very much a career development thing that happened because he started to demonstrate his expertise and focus on it. And the third one I'll just touch on now, just in case there's any answers you haven't typed in yet. John was a facilitator in the HR department of a medium-sized company. He had realised and he stopped and he wanted to become the go-to expert for people looking for a career change. He wanted to be able to support those people. One of the things he did, he set up a personal website with his employer's knowledge, and in fact he negotiated to drop back to a 4-day week so he can indulge in that passion without upsetting anybody. What happened as time progressed, as it happens, he started to have that specialism, and his company actually made use of it. So a couple of very quick examples there, just to kind of say the different ways in which people use this whole process. Okay, so looking at the graph, it looks like one of you is self-employed, the bulk of you manage people or have some technical specialisms. I'm going to skip on so that we can come back to that in a little while. The next question that I often get asked when talking about this is, what is an expert? So what I've stuck on the screen is a couple of Wikipedia definitions. So fairly obvious to sit there and say it's somebody that knows more than we do. But actually when it comes down to it, the go-to expert is somebody that is seen by others as the expert that they go to themselves. So in a sense, I can't decide that I am the go-to expert. I become the go-to expert because other people see the demonstrations that I'm making. They see that, if you like, the giveaways, and therefore they are attracted towards you. More people start to ask you to do things because you are the expert, and that's where the development results happen. Now, as long as Janet won't tell me off for telling a non-PC story, the story that I often tell, a little example, and it goes like this. If you were in front of a room full of gentlemen, or you were talking to some gentlemen, and imagine that there was two pictures on the monitor. One was a lady in a bikini, and the other was a lady in a much more covered up bathing suit, if I can put it like that.
I think they're called one-pieces, John.
One-pieces, that will do. Thank you, Janet. But the point is that most people would immediately recognise that most blokes would go for and look at the person with the skimpy bikini on. So what I call this is the bikini effect, for just that reason. And it goes like this. The more you give away, the more that what's left becomes valued. So it comes back to this thing about becoming the go-to expert. One of the things that more and more people are demonstrating their expertise, they're giving bits of information away for free, whether that's on social media, they're giving out tips, they might be writing a personal blog, they might be doing a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, which we'll talk about in a little while. But the point is, all the time they are out there demonstrating their views on their specialist subject, as a result of which it's assumed absolutely naturally that, well, you're giving all that away, you must know even more. So the point of being a go-to expert then is people are going to come to you because they've seen you demonstrate your expertise. Now, Janet, I don't think the next slide has got any words on it, has it?
It hasn't, I'm afraid, John, if you can just talk
I'll
us through
invent these then and talk about them. Really what this slide does is talk about why demonstrating expertise is becoming increasingly important in today's society. And I started to break it down on the slide in the way that us people from business school know and love. And I did a very quick STEEP analysis. So let's kind of talk through some of the society things. In society, there is more and more competition nowadays. There are more people competing for your jobs because you're not just competing with other people in the UK very often. With the internet and some of the technology that's around, communications become faster all around the world, and it becomes very, very easy to outsource. It becomes very easy to get information from almost anywhere. As a result of that, that's why I say it's harder and harder to become different to your colleagues, that you're trying to demonstrate, why should I be promoted and not them? And actually it becomes harder to show why. It's harder to show the difference. And there's probably less value in some of the general skills. So expertise, if there's a particular thing that you can demonstrate expertise in continuously, then it becomes useful. In technological terms, coming back to STEEP, we talked about the internet, we talked about communication speed. The world is getting smaller. It's that common phrase that gets talked about. There are more people that you can be compared with. Even if I just use my diving example from the very beginning. Go back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, perhaps when I learned to dive. If I wanted to learn to dive, I'd look through Yellow Pages, find the one person in Milton Keynes, and he'd teach me. Nowadays, I can pick anybody within a 2.5 hour drive of the particular dive site that I want to go to within 0.17 seconds. So the world is becoming smaller, there's more comparison, there's more importance in becoming expert because it helps you stand out. Economic reasons. I think it's probably fair to say that there are nowadays more portfolio careers. There's more job changes. Freelancing is becoming much more common. There's a lot more people doing interim work as well as some self-employment stuff. And this kind of portfolio idea where you might be doing one thing then another. So as we think about portfolios, as we think about multiple career changes or job changes, again we come back to this thing which is, well, why would I employ person A rather than person B? I can do an interview, that's great. But actually when it comes down to it, what I want to see is a continual amount of knowledge that's been displayed over a period of time. And I guess finally for me, the political thing, you know, I've been watching all the election stuff and we've been hearing all the sound bites lately. What are sound bites really? Very quick pieces of communication in the language of the audience. So I use that to just link me back to Einstein for a second. Einstein once said that it's really, really easy to talk about things in language that nobody understands. It's really hard to make it easy to understand. So if you're going to be known as the expert, it's about speaking the language that your audience will understand rather than the other way around. It's about becoming, if you like, how to sell yourself in a way that's easier and feels perhaps more authentic. And then I come back to this kind of final thought on the I was chatting to Meta Block, who was an Olympic rowing champion a couple of months ago. And she pointed out this really interesting statement: the winner only has to cross the line first. It doesn't matter by how much. So in an area where we're competing for jobs more, we're looking for greater variety, sometimes you just want a little bit more edge. So having this continual demonstration of expertise becomes something that could just be the bit that pushes you over the line first. Janet, could you stick up the second poll for me, please?
I will do. I'll just
Thank
open
you
the
very
poll.
much. Okay. So, relatively simple one, and it's about understanding your interest in becoming the go-to expert. Perhaps it's because you want to sell more if you're self-employed, or you want to get a better price for the stuff you do sell. Perhaps you're looking for kudos and credibility. Some people, when they start to do the job they really love, are enjoying work more. And perhaps it's pure and simple career development.
While we're waiting for the results to come in, John, it struck me while you were talking that do you think approachability is probably part of becoming the go-to expert?
I think it's really, really important. I mean, I know some people who are experts that aren't approachable. What's the result of that? They don't get asked.
Precisely.
You know, if I knew 3,000 things and the next person only knew 20, but the person who knew 20 was happy to share them in a way that was understandable, who's everyone going to go to? So you're absolutely right. It is important to be approachable. So having the knowledge is one thing, but it's got to be given out in such a way that it's useful. While we're kind of finishing that one off, I'll just pick on another quick example if I can. Martin was a business development expert for professional service firms. He was in one of the top accounting practices in the country, and he wanted to raise his profile, build the size and quality of his network to improve his future employability. He started to use LinkedIn, and he started to focus on some personal emails. He started to develop his network with high-profile members of professional services. And what he started to get asked to do was some guest blogging for a number of different firms. And what he noticed was every time a guest blog was published, the number on his views on his LinkedIn profile increased by a factor of 4 or more. And it was this increased profile due to guest blogging that led him to being headhunted up to business development function for law firm in the Middle East. So again, a different example of go-to expert, if you like, and some of the things that happened. So most people looking for career development, I like the one about enjoying work more, because personally I think that's one of the really important things that are out there. And perhaps in a second we'll stop for a couple of questions and unpack some of that. I kind of want to quickly look again, and this is very much a commercial slide, and it was done by Hindu Research Institute, and it was around the amount that professionals can bill as they develop their expertise. So an average professional on a baseline was $100, that's right, it was American research, internally recognised within company, locally, nationally and internationally. So yes, it's very much a billing example, but for any of you that are looking for career development in a professional services firm where the amount you can bill is important, again, it's probably a good reason to be thinking about expertise. And it's certainly, I'm quite sure there is an analogy, if you like, that we can take back to your own career within the company you work for. Your value increases as more people recognise you as an expert. So internally, yep, great, but if they start to recognise your expertise outside your current company, that's going to increase your value to your employees. So very quickly, going to look at 3 steps to capitalising on the niche. It's really, really hard to claim that you're the expert in absolutely everything. And in all the cases that I've worked with, what we've needed to do is narrow down the things that you claim to be and the things that you research on, the things you are and an expert in, and the things you get approached to be expert in. So number 1 is, I say, decide on the niche. Decide on how you're going to narrow that down. Package your brand. This is very much around what's your personal brand. How is it absolutely clear to people that you are the expert? None of this kind of saying, yeah, I'm brilliant at this, but actually how are you going to use your personal brand to demonstrate this expertise? And then obviously that leads you on after that to getting your message out there. So that's kind of the 3 steps. Let's kind of unpick some of those if I can. The first thing is where the next slide doesn't work. The first thing says, what will you specialise in? And I guess where I work with people on this one, it's saying, well, what is it that you get excited about at the moment? What's your passion within your current role? What in your current role do you have credibility on? What do you have great knowledge on? And obviously, where is there a need or an opportunity for that knowledge to be used? So the first set of things, you think about things you might specialise and focus some of your expertise into, is around credibility, passion, knowledge, and obviously you have to overlay that with a need. The next thing I would start to think about then is to go, well, who's the target audience for this? If I'm going to specialise in being a database developer of a particular type of database that can really help people in a company to do data analysis, my target audience may well be the people that are doing the data analysis, and that's good. Or is it that my target audience is the influencers, the people that make the decisions? You've probably got both are the target audience, and it's therefore about considering how you're going to get your name out there. Because it's the people that are doing the data analysis in that example that are the important ones to let you know, be known as an expert. The final thing I would suggest is about keeping up to date. And this is again one of the reasons why you need to specialise in something. You need to be keeping up to date, not just within the company, but outside, the way that other people with your kind of knowledge are doing things. Social media can have a huge way of helping you to know what's really up to date, and we'll touch on it in a couple of minutes.
Jon, Mark has made the comment that knowledge and expertise is all very well, but if you aren't a good listener, you are unlikely to go very far.
I think that's absolutely important, Mark. Really, really good point. Thank you. And again, if you don't listen, well, how do you understand what people's problems are? Totally agree with you. I really can't put it any more simply than that, I think. Now this again is a commercial one, but it's kind of still relevant to some of us, I think. This is where we did some research and Hinge did some research on how people check people out. The interesting one is ask friends or colleagues, 60% of people check things out, searching online, 60-odd%, and social media, 60-odd%. There's a huge number of people, if they're looking for the expert, they're going to ask friends and colleagues, they're going to look on social media, or they're going to look online. And as it says, people tend nowadays to look for more than one source. So, relevance of that to us, obviously, in terms of our network, friends, our network of colleagues, obviously in terms of things we might do in social media, which might be LinkedIn, and we used the example earlier of the guy that started a personal blog as well, which is going to help the online search.
Jon, would you think that articles might help as well, sort of publishing articles online?
I think articles are absolutely hugely important. In fact, Janet, do you want to pick up the next poll for me?
Yes, I will. You didn't actually run through the last poll, I think, did you, Jon? Do you want to have a quick look at that first?
Yeah, sure. I was just saying that for most of the people here, it's about career development. For some of them, it's about enjoying work more. Is the reason for becoming and having an interest in the go-to expert as a concept.
Right. I've opened the next poll for you, Jon.
Brilliant. So let me just explain this one. Kind of, what's the highest level that you achieve at the moment, if you like? I'm kind of starting at the top saying I often get asked by my peers about issues in my particular field. I often get asked by my superiors. Kind of an even higher level would be I often present to the company on my specialism. I use LinkedIn to demonstrate credibility. Perhaps I'm writing articles on LinkedIn. Perhaps I present often in front of my target audience, which might be wider than my existing company. Perhaps I have published or do publish in trade press or the sector press. So let people think about that for a second, and I'll use an example of a good friend of mine, actually. I went to school with a guy called Dave. He's heavily into IT in the public sector. And one of the things he started doing recently, as I've realised, is over the last 8 or 9 months, he started to use LinkedIn very differently to the way he was using it before. It allows you to publish articles that you've written about your views and that demonstrate your expertise. I was chatting with him a couple of weeks ago about what's happened, why he started doing that and what's happened since. He started doing it partly because he wanted to write something. He found it cathartic almost. He also was very much aware that his current employer knew of his abilities, but nobody else did. And this isn't about, he hasn't put his current employer's nose out of joint because he's not using it in any way that says about, this is me looking for another job. He is demonstrating his expertise partly within the company, but I happen to know that he's had a couple of other job offers since he started doing it because he's demonstrating that expertise. Don't know if we've got any answers on that one yet, Janet.
I'm just going to click the poll results. There we go. You should be seeing them now, John, can you?
I can't at the moment.
I'm not sure why they're not showing, so let me read it for you. We have often asked by my peers about issues in my field, 16%. Often asked by my superiors about issues in my field, 37%. Often present in my company on specialism, 11%. Nobody uses LinkedIn, interestingly, and nobody publishes articles. And 11% present in front of a target audience. And nobody publishes in sector press. So.
Okay, thank you for that. So I guess for me the question, if I was sitting there looking at that list and going, I want to increase my profile as an expert, I'd probably look at that list and go, well, what's the next one step up, if I can put it like that? What else could I do? So I want to kind of touch on things that you can do in order to package your brand, in order to be seen more. We talked about social media as the first one. We're going to touch very quickly on networking, and those are the kind of two main ones that I'm going to touch on. We could talk about presentation skills, but I'm going to kind of skip that one for tonight. So I'm going to touch on social media first. Most of us are thinking about social media and we think of things like Facebook. So I'm going to skip over Facebook for a second. I don't think that's really where I'm looking to demonstrate my professional credibility. Very much going to start thinking about LinkedIn. And so I would suggest to people, make sure you're not using it as a CV. This is not about you kind of getting out there to find another job. It's about writing a summary that showcases your skills. This is about writing articles or perhaps status updates with things of interest. Doing some research, whether you run Google Alerts to find interesting things and you spend 20 minutes a week, a day. I know some people that spend an hour a day on this. They have a number of people that they follow on LinkedIn who regularly publish articles and are thought leaders, if you like. They look at certain people's Twitter articles. They run Google Alerts to pick out things that are of interest in their particular specialism. So that's about them increasing their personal knowledge. Some of those they then reshare on LinkedIn. Everybody loves it when you reshare their posts on LinkedIn because it's about saying, yeah, look, I'm recognising this other person. But at the same time as recognising somebody else, you're demonstrating that you have an interest and some knowledge of your particular field. And of course, on LinkedIn, as I said, I mentioned Dave, he started writing a post. That's probably about an A4 or 2 A4 sheets, if I put it in an old-fashioned way, where he's talking about a particular issue around his specialism. It gets attached to his LinkedIn profile, and it certainly is resulting in him getting a lot of attention. So social media profile is the important one. The next thing, thinking about connections. Are you connected to all the relevant people? We talk about your target audience. Are you connected to them? How can you start to build those? And then, of course, starting to have conversations with people. Otherwise, all you're ever doing is being connected and hoping that they read status updates. Now, the next thing I want to lead into a very short piece about is networking. And I don't know what your views of networking are, but certainly when I was employed by big corporates, my view of networking was a little bit kind of, oh, don't want to do that. Nowadays, my view is a little bit different, and I challenge you to think for a moment about what your networking objective might be. What is it you want to get from networking? And in the context of the go-to expert, in the context of demonstrating your knowledge, in the context of making connections. I'm not sure what your networking objective might be, but I know when I ask somebody the next question, it really focuses things. And I say to them, think of 5 people that you know who are most able to help you achieve your networking objective. So that might be most able to put you in touch with people. That might be most able to share some of your great material that you're putting out on LinkedIn. Demonstrate to other people how good you are. I don't know. Think of 5 people you know who are most able to help you. Now, let me talk about this next slide. And this is what I would call a relationship map. And there's 5 levels. Identify at the bottom is about going, yes, I know who somebody is. The next level up is about I'm connected with them. I know who they are and I have made a kind of connection. Engage with them. So you might have had a bit of a conversation, and engage could go further and further up until, you know what, I collaborate with them, I work with them regularly. And kind of top level, I've worked with them that much, we've done stuff together that much, we've shared stuff together, we've really worked a lot together, and they're almost becoming each other's in a circle. The reason I put this is, I don't say to people, it takes time and it develops trust to get a relationship to the top of that triangle. You can't have all of your colleagues at the top end of the triangle. Realistically, it's not possible. So it's about focusing on who the really important ones are. If you were to map those 5 initials on your own personal triangle, it'd be really interesting to go, where are they? And if I'm trying to get more from my network, how do I move them up the triangle? What have I got to do? How do I develop my relationship with them in order to move it up the triangle? And that's the one biggest thing that I've seen make a huge difference in people's networking. So Janet, I think it's probably a really good time. I've talked for longer than I intended to, actually, without stopping for questions. Have we got any questions
fine,
that
John.
are immediately online, or do you want to open it up?
We haven't. Peter has said it's really interesting ideas, real thought provokers. I've got a quick question. You often mention the word brand, your brand.
Yep.
I wonder if people are still a bit scared of thinking of themselves as a brand. I know I am. I'm sort of a little bit old-fashioned, I think. So I wonder if a lot of people are, if we need to be a bit more open-minded about this.
Yeah, interesting. It's a very, very good question. When marketing departments create brands for companies, what they're trying to do is make the company seem like a person. Because the company brand, if you like, is encompassing all those skills and personalities that they want the company to be perceived as. So, my question would be, if I was talking about a personal brand, is how do you want people to perceive you? We want them to perceive us, if we're following this logic, as very good at something. As Mark said, we need them to perceive us as a good listener. We talked about approachability, which is, again, important. But what are the aspects, if you like, of our personalities that we want to come across? And I would kind of start there. So I'd go, what's the expertise that I want to come across? That's the skills part of the brand. and what are the personality factors that we want to be known as. I don't think you can suddenly invent a personality unless you're a good actor, but I do think that it's about focusing on the things that we want. And you know, in today's world where there's more and more people that are similar, personality becomes more important. I know if I'm choosing, and many of us choosing, I was asking a couple of guys today, how you would choose between one accountant and another if both were absolutely equally skilled. And the answer is they would choose the personality that matches the best. So it's about thinking about your own personality. Some of the upward feedback that you've probably had before in your company, some of the 360 information that you've had will help to think about how you are perceived, and then how do you develop that further.
Thank you, John. That was really interesting. We've actually got no more questions at the moment, so I expect people might come up with some after the event. That often happens.
That's fine.
Sorry, David has just said, do you think it's also about being authentic in a personal brand?
I think authentic is an incredibly important word. Thank you, David. Really, really important word. You cannot manufacture a personality, but that's why I talked a lot earlier about if you're going to develop an expertise in something, make it something that you are genuinely, passionately interested in. Because the more we get back to who we are inside ourselves, the more we are working with things that we are truly excited about, the more authentic we are becoming naturally. And a lot of people spend a lot of time nowadays going, how can I become authentic? Well, actually, surely it's about starting at the beginning, about being true to yourself.
Thank you, John.
I kind of got a couple of quick slides just to finish on then, because sometimes people start thinking about this stuff and they go, yeah, I'm going to start on it at some point in time, but I can't get it right yet, so I won't start just yet. And it's a saying that I use a lot, which is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
I agree.
My long-winded way of saying, you might not sit there and make a great start right now. You might not become the expert tomorrow. But what are the one or two simple little steps that you could be taking that start to develop things? Maybe it's just about starting to think about it. Maybe it's about revisiting your LinkedIn profile so that it's starting to become clear the things that you are passionate about and you are an expert in. Maybe it's about starting to spend a little bit more time researching out of company hours or inside company hours about those things, but starting to take the first step. Now, I am very happy, I know Janet's going to send out the slides. Janet, I'm very happy to take questions from people directly. My email addresses, etc., are on there. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's absolutely brilliant. If you use Twitter, I'm on Twitter. Email, or there's a website. Now, the website on there, gotoexpert.co.uk. There's lots of blogs on there. There's lots of hints, tips, and things on developing your expertise in various many ways, as well as lots of networking support and ideas.
And I can vouch for that. John's website is very, very interesting. We've got one more comment, John, which I'd just like to read out. Ala has said that you've made a good point when you mentioned publishing an article or book that can help promote the message to the world about your expertise. They've actually asked if you could recommend a platform to publish an expertise book in an electronic format, e.g. Kindle or some such. So that's quite a question.
Yeah, that's a very long-winded question. I didn't expect anyone to jump that quite that far ahead. First things I would always suggest when it comes to publishing are get into writing and make sure you're writing well. That's why I often start with blogs, articles, white papers. The next thing, if you're going to write a book, and it takes a lot more effort than you think it will, if you're going to write a book that you do want published and you do want people to see, get somebody, whether you pay for a proper editor or whether if you find somebody that can really read it properly. Now, and then they'll come back and the good editors are really ruthless. And I hated my one when he first came back, and I thought, no, that's it, I'm giving up. The next thing I would then go is kind of, there are lots of self-help places for publishing. There's lots of self-help groups on the internet for publishing. I know there's a Facebook group about self-publishing. So there's lots of support out there. I would probably recommend starting to use that. But then, yes, you can get stuff put up onto Kindle relatively easily. You can I can't think of the correct title of it, but Amazon do a print-on-demand service. So effectively, you can get something electronic loaded up to Amazon, and then you can just get the book physically printed when you want to. Alternately, you might be able to go to a small local printer if you've got the thing typeset, which is easy to do electronically nowadays, and say, please just make me 20 copies of this.
Thank you very much, John. I think we might have to wrap it up there because we've gone over time a little, which is not surprising considering we're a little late starting, but also the cleaners are starting to come round in the office. I don't know if you can hear them clattering in the background. So I just want to thank you all, and thank you, John. I found that absolutely fascinating. Thank you all. So good night, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next one.
Okay, guys, and do connect with me. Look forward to catching up with you sometime soon.